Welcome to Southern California's best and favorite surf and lifestyle show. Here's your host, Mike and Bill.
Ow!
That's live?
Now we are.
Good. Hey, Stinky Booties. Southern California's best and favorite surf and lifestyle podcast.
All right.
We have a special episode today. We're going to skip all the... Oh, our plane's here. We're going to skip all the mumbo jumbo that we normally do and get into it because this is a big episode. We've got Charlie Bowen from Save Oceanside Sand and Jayme Timberlake from the city of Oceanside with us.
Thank you guys for coming on.
To talk about Re-Beach, city of Oceanside, all the sand that's going on. Save Oceanside Sand's effort to probably without that group, we wouldn't even be talking about putting sand on the beach. We, in quotes, have been talking about it for 25 years, but no one's done anything. So there's a whole thing going on. We got Mike over there with his root beer.
Yep, every episode.
Yeah.
Root beer.
But anyway, I think we can just get into it here.
Okay, straight into it.
Bunch of stuff going on.
All right, who's your favorite rock band of the 80s? Just kidding.
Rock band of the 80s.
I was listening to Bowie on the way here. I mean,
no way. Yeah. I was going to say Bowie.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, you can go on their websites to figure this out. But anyway, let's talk about rock bands. We're just going to...
Sweet. Segue into... Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you guys wear booties?
I wear one. I do.
One?
Yeah.
Nice.
Back foot or front foot?
Yeah. We had this discussion
you don't even
last
understand.
week.
This is like, I just look at him like, what are you
My
doing?
front foot sticks, so I can't move my front foot. So I always have. In the 80s, you're too young, but in the 80s,
Yeah.
everyone wore one booty.
Nobody wore one booty.
One booty and webs.
Nobody did.
Webs.
Yeah, webs.
I
Do you know what
never.
webs are?
Yes, I do.
I don't wear booties to answer your question. I
do.
deal with. I don't like them.
Oh, my car stinks for it.
Oh,
No.
I just threw mine away in
Oh,
absolute anger. I hate these things.
Oh, why?
They're too sticky. And,
Right. So you got to break the wax in.
and-
That's the thing.
Yeah.
But the front foot, I can still do it, but it takes like 2 sessions.
Yeah.
Maybe it needs to be sticky booties.
Change the name,
bold.
change.
There's people that hear about this podcast and they either get it or they're just mortified with the name. And I'm like, no, it's not that.
It's
We're not talking about
IES.
babies.
IES.
Yeah, totally different. But anyway, that was a quick rabbit hole. Thanks, Jayme. Just went right in there.
I'm in the mood.
You're supposed to be the adult in the room, but you're not helping.
Shoot.
But anyway, Charlie, fill us in on really where we're at with Save Oceanside Sand and the things that you guys are doing. And I know there's been a bunch of stuff in the news. Just maybe fill in people that don't live in Oceanside. If you don't know, we're international, right? As far as Poland.
Yeah, we're international.
Yeah, so we have a lot
Nice.
of people listening that have no idea about anything we're talking about. So
Save Oceanside Sand is the local advocacy group that has started about 5.5 years ago and advocated for Oceanside doing something about restoring and sustaining its beaches. And at our core, we're a small, nimble, work smart organization. And we advocate at the city, county, state, and federal level. And we do some other things besides advocate for sand. We have a community science effort that takes regular, beach and shoreline measurements and reports that to Scripps, and they put it into a database. And a condition of providing the data was that they make it available to the public.
Oh, okay.
So people other than Scripps can use it. I think GHD uses it for the city project. And then, we also do our outreach efforts. So we do community outreach with pop-ups. So Memorial Weekend to Labor Day, we do beach pop-ups south of the pier. And that's just to try to educate people on what's going on with the beach, with issues, with what possible solutions are, kind of give people a vision of what could be versus what is right now.
yeah, so a little background is 15 years ago in the city of Oceanside, the beaches weren't huge, but they weren't small, and they were sustained pretty much the length of Oceanside, which is
Yes.
roughly 6 miles, right?
4.
Okay, so
Yeah.
4 miles. So there was pretty much sand. You could run on sand. I don't know why you'd want to do that unless someone's chasing you. But from the harbor all the way to the border,
Cassidy, past Cassidy to the lagoon.
all the way
to the lagoon.
It's just over time for a variety of reasons that some people say they know, or maybe we have no idea. But anyway, there's a whole section on the southern part of the city where it's pretty much gone. There's sand there in the water. It's not like it drops off into the oblivion, but it just kind of went away for different reasons. And so, we're trying to figure out what we can do to get that back and just make it a solid recreation area for the community. So that's kind of a background as to what everything's about and why we're even doing it.
And Jayme's our first repeat guest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Jayme,
I did good the first time then.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So Jayme's with the city of Oceanside, and your title is what specifically?
Coastal Zone Administrator.
Okay, so essentially, you're kind of the city representative of the Beach and getting sand back on the beach for the city of Oceanside. I mean, in layman's terms.
Right. So my role at the city is a project manager for that project specifically. And then overall, I'm trying to help solve the beach erosion issue and then also build resilience on the coastline into the future. So keeping an eye on sea level rise and all those issues that are forthcoming. So long-term planning, but also project implementation kind of here and now, as fast as we can get it going.
So other than that, you really don't do much.
It's a very, it's a lofty
Some days
goal
you're
for sure.
Some days you're at work, just nothing to do, and you're just kind of like, what can I do? There's nothing really. I have all those other, dialed. So
That's our fault. We advocated to get her hired.
yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah, I know.
Best investment in Oceanside.
Well, I think
for sure.
I think originally wasn't it kind of a let's see how this role goes type scenario. It wasn't necessarily a long-term permanent position with the city. Originally, it was
Right.
the where we are now, which we'll get into, didn't exist. It was just kind of a desire to figure out how to replenish the beaches, and you were brought in just to kind of lead that effort, and it wasn't defined, which I think now there's a lot more definition around it, but you're
Right.
still here, so obviously you're doing a great job.
Thanks. I hope so. I want to move faster with things, but I'm working hard. Yeah, I was working for the city of Encinitas before this as their coastal zone program administrator. So doing similar projects and trying to get the Army Corps project going for Encinitas and Solana Beach. And so kind of when all of that got buttoned up and the position in Oceanside became available, I was like, well, I'm going to go help Oceanside, because actually Oceanside is more the place where I have always gone to recreate, surf, and hang out. And I grew up in San Clemente, but when in the wintertime, San Clemente doesn't get the swell, but Oceanside still picks it up. So I was often coming from San Clemente to Oceanside, even as a kid.
Yeah.
And then I've now lived here since 2007. So.
Wow.
And everybody knows that Oceanside's better than Encinitas, so.
Well, she's from Sacramento.
I know. I'm just saying she used to work at Encinitas, so
okay.
she wanted to go where the action is. So I understand. The
I
move.
wanted to help. I wanted to do some, action, get some action going up here.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, like I said, a lot's happened since Save Oceanside Sand was created, and also your position was created.
Mm-hmm.
And some of our listeners may have heard about it in the news, but kind of fill us in on what's transpired and kind of where we are and with getting sand back on the beach.
So we have a main project, which is Beach Oceanside, and that's the pilot project where we're building an artificial reef and 2 headlands. And this came out of a design competition that we did for about 8 months, and it was an international competition, so borrowing ideas from other places on the planet that have already been dealing with this issue more aggressively. So at the end of that design competition, we ended with this artificial reef and 2 headlands as a retention mechanism, because one of the biggest problems that we know for sure with the sand erosion issue is that we don't have any reefs and we don't have any coves or points. So we don't have a lot of structure to the coastline. And therefore it's like a long sandbar. It's just, the sand kind of comes and goes very freely, and it goes more than it comes. And so the retention aspect of this that's where the Beach design really focused on trying to figure out what kinds of different innovative retention mechanisms could we use on the coast. Right now, we just got an augment to the design because it's very complicated to build an artificial reef. We really want to make sure we nail it. And so we have to do a lot of kind of enhanced modeling and data and baseline monitoring, making sure we have a real accurate depiction of the coastline before we put anything kind of innovative and test this mechanism out. We have an additional contract with that, but we're working on doing that finalization of the design. So design meaning like size of the reefs, like how high they're going to be, how much water is going to be above them, how wide are they, what's their shape? Are they going to be a chevron? Are they going to be a triangle?
So specs, basically, design specs.
Right.
So that's great. That's good to hear that really there's a lot of energy still. The project has energy. Walk us through kind of how we got to where we got to. You said it was an international, but I know there was also some community engagement, there was public engagement. Kind of walk through kind of what that looked like.
Prior to me getting to Oceanside, the city was frustrated that the Army Corps of Engineers kept saying, we're going to bring some sand to your beaches. We're going to fix this issue. It's all stemming from the boat basin, the Camp Pendleton Harbor, which now has the small craft harbor, the city's harbor adjacent to it. But the Army Corps has long promised that they're bringing forward a solution. And in 2020, it had been 20 years of the Army Corps saying that they're going to bring forward this solution. And they haven't even finished the study to date. And it's just the beginning of it, just the study that shows what will be the project that will solve the problem of the beach erosion issue. So 20 years, and the city said, let's do this feasibility assessment on what's happening ourselves. And so that's where we got this phase 1 of this whole thing that had identified that we needed to retain sand and that we needed to find sand that was better than the material that we're using from the harbor. Because that harbor sand is super fine grained. I mean, you can feel the sand in Oceanside is all very fine.
It's silt.
And it's all it's because it's coming from the harbor. And that's pretty much all the sand that we're getting naturally.
The replenishment they give us.
Yeah.
And just to be clear there, too, the replenishment, it is not a sand project. It's a disposal project.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they're just getting rid of it.
By Department of Water and Boatways, and it's the Army Corps that does it for them. We take advantage of that disposal project by having a couple of receiver sites that are approved, and we can put the sand where we direct them to. At the end of the day, it's not a sand project. It's a disposal project to keep the waterway open.
And they stop disposing down further. It's getting closer and closer.
Well,
kind of stops the pier area now.
Yeah, it
used to extend way past it.
Yeah, there's been lots of just iterations of it over the years, and we've been doing it since the 70s. So
the federal government has not been a good partner with this whole thing. I mean, just look at the border and sewage treatment. They've been talking about that for 50 years. I heard last year they got the money, and then I heard the other day the EPA said, oh, it doesn't qualify as a Superfund site. Okay.
I don't know how.
Okay.
But
I'm 55 years old, and when I was a kid learning to surf, I was enamored with this book called Surfing California, written by ghostwriter Bank Wright. Mm-hmm. And he talked about the Tijuana Sloughs as a surf spot. It's a big wave spot way off on the beach. In that book, it's identified as a polluted area that you can't surf. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 50 years later, there's, for all essentially, toilet to ocean water. Let's just call it what it is. And the EPA says that it's not a Superfund site. It's okay, to the point of the city just saying, you know what, fine, we're going to go off. It's probably the best approach.
Just so everyone knows, you're talking about Imperial Beach.
Imperial Beach, right. But I'm basically using that
as an example.
Yeah.
Anecdotally as an example of how the federal government partners with local municipalities. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're great. Other times they just aren't, and you never know why. So we have to deal with what we have to deal with. So
it's just super bureaucratic. And so it's there's a directive and then it's interpreted very strictly. But the guidelines have been all over the place. And so, they just get really confused about how to implement something when it's a little off. This is a strange project. It's
it's kind of funny.
42 built.
And these numbers aren't real, but with 30 to 50 million to do the re-beach, roughly, they've probably spent $30 million just going back and forth on, does this even count? So people working determine if it even matters. They probably spent that much money over the last 20 years with just different people and all that stuff where it's like, all right, well,
That brings up an interesting point because I just went to the Smart Coast conference last fall. They really focused on sea level rise and your sea level rise adaptation plan, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And the question I asked the Coastal Commission is, we seem to spend so much money planning.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the projects we really need seem to, just linger and not quite get done.
It's probably relatively cheap to drop some rocks off a barge off the coast, couple, maybe 300 yards off the beach, and
just an accident one night, right?
I don't know. I don't know how they got there.
So Jayme, the two areas you're starting off with is Wisconsin and Tyson, right?
Right. Yeah. So we did this feasibility study. We had this idea we need to get retention done. We need to figure out how to do retention. Traditionally, everyone's used groins in the past. So like Newport jetties, those are groins. Even South Jetty in Oceanside is a groin.
Yep.
So retained sand on Harbor Beach. So that's the traditional method of doing it. That was opposed by many people in the region, many cities in the region. And so we pivoted to have this design competition. That's the origins of why we wanted to do something more innovative. And the winning design is based on a design that's been implemented already on the Gold Coast of Australia. And I checked it out. I got to go.
Oh, you went to go? Oh,
I went.
Did you surf it?
I surfed it.
Wow.
I don't know.
How's that crowd?
What do you think?
Hold on a
I
second.
think we need to...
How's that crowd?
Well, Burley was crowded. Currumbin crowded. Palm Beach, where the reef was, not so crowded. But the reef had, it's an offshore reef. It's deep water that it sits in. So the wave breaks on it and to the side and into deeper water. So you're kind of only getting waves off of the reef on the Gold Coast, like that suppers could use. But then on the inside, I have got two bodyboarder boys. So they were super stoked on the inside where all the sand had accumulated inside of the reef. And I had fun there too. I mean, and there's plenty of surf on either side of it as well that has pretty much just benefited because it's a lot of sand retained there now.
So what do you think it's going to do for us? Is it going to be a surfable break?
I think it'll be the same. We don't want to have it too close to shore, the reef itself.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to create more erosion issues. We want to have it dissipate the waves' energy a little bit, have the waves come over it still. I always think of it like kind of like seaside, like in Cardiff. It's kind of like there's a reef far offshore, it breaks, and then it's kind of like into deeper water.
Yeah.
And then on the inside, it's punchy. And so I feel like it's going to be the same, and we're going to get into all that design. In fact, we're taking the design to such detail that we're going to be modeling a reef and putting it in a basin and then pushing the water over it to see how it works and how the waves break around it. And we'll be doing a couple different iterations of how the artificial reef works with the headlands and doing that in this, kind of high-tech basin.
Is the concept that Tyson and Wisconsin will connect at some point from a shoreline standpoint of a sustainable beach that will eventually connect those 2 points?
Do you mean like lateral access on the beach?
Right. So you're going to, if there's one at Tyson, there's one at Wisconsin, which isn't, it's not far, but it's not close. Is the point that the sand accumulation will at some point
push
kind
out?
of make a nice beach that links those two, not to where there's beach at Tyson, rock, and then it goes beach, Wisconsin. It'll link.
I mean, I'm expecting it to link north and south of Tyson and Wisconsin too.
So the pier will kind of interact with Tyson, which will interact with Wisconsin, which probably won't dissipate till you get way, way down there.
I think at the end of the day, the artificial headlands are 2,000 feet apart with the reef in between. That potentially impacts like 4,000 feet of beach, maybe, when you think of south of it, north of it, on both ends, plus in between.
Yeah, so that's...
The important part of all this is like we have these retention mechanisms, but the idea is that we're going to retain the sand that we're going to place.
Okay.
And so up front, we need a whole lot of sand to kind of get back to normalcy, have some kind of beach space. So we need a lot to infill, but then after that, it should be diminished quite a bit. So up front, we need 900,000 cubic yards. That's the estimate right now. That's like 5 times the amount that we placed in the past. During the regional projects.
Okay.
It's about 4 times the amount that we place annually from the harbor.
Ooh, okay.
So if you think of all that sand at one time,
Wow.
you know, it's going to have a massive impact even outside of the project area.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know.
So
Exciting.
this show, I mean, to be clear, the two guys that surf, I do want beach on the sand. I do want to go hang out again in Oceanside Boulevard. There's so many places that
Totally.
they're not. Buccaneer's gone. Doesn't barely exist.
I used to hang at the Rock with my kid when he was little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If this project works, are they going to move on and do more projects just like it? Is that the plan?
Yeah. So,
Or is that too far ahead?
well, this is a pilot project. So we want to really make sure it works and we want to know what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to be essentially studying it.
Yeah.
And that's all part of this whole contract that we're working on right now. How are we going to study it? How are we going to assess it? What are the performance standards that it needs to meet before we then decide to move it into other places? Can it be like a cookie cutter situation? I don't know, to be determined. It might have to be changed slightly per area. But the idea is that we can use this as a template for future projects.
We have a big surf industry in Oceanside, probably the biggest in the world. Talked to one of my buddies there just the other day. Their concern as surfers is this, especially being so close to the pier at Tyson, is this going to mess with the surf?
Well, if you think about like the surf now, right, south of the pier.
Yeah.
I surf too, so I used to surf at Tyson all the time.
Yeah,
surf
Tyson
in
used to have a
Wisconsin
good
even
left.
as a
It's
kid.
not good anymore.
No.
It used to be really good.
That left that came through Tyson.
Not that long ago, it was pretty good, and it's not good anymore.
Well, the reef is going to be between Tyson and Wisconsin.
Yes,
so
no,
that's
I understand.
quite a ways from the pier in terms of like, if you're thinking about, is the wave going to refract off the reef over to the pier? That's not going to happen. It's too far.
Yeah. Okay.
But what it is going to do is kind of create this discontinuity of the sandbar. So, I mean, you know, we get these surf reports and it's like, you need structure.
Right.
You know, look for structure. Beach breaks are great for this
That's
moment,
why everyone's at the pier.
But yeah, we
That's
need
the structure.
structure. And so this is what it's going to do. It's going to break up the sandbar a little bit. So it's not such like a closeout most of the time, which it is kind of now.
Yes.
The sand will still migrate. And that's the other important point. If we use groins, the sand gets very stuck and it doesn't move very much. The currents aren't as interactive. And so with a reef, it's going to be more interactive with the currents and the wave conditions, and the sand will still move around.
But it could be disruptive and move sand in an asymmetrical manner that would create rideable sandbars, not just a sandbar that goes for 400 yards in both directions. Which
that's not bad either.
That's a sandbar, but that's a giant wall. Versus when you have, when you have some disruption of movement, you create, like a lot of places in the world, it's kind of like, oh, the sandbar was great last week, but it's gone now.
Yeah.
And then another one forms down the road. Like you're looking at Skeleton Bay.
Oh.
The sand moves around there. From what I've never been there, but reading it is like some swells, they set the sand up perfect. But then over time, that same swell blows that sandbar out and then it reforms in another way. It could add, to your point, it could create a dynamic movement that adds a lot of variety.
Ombe surf? That Ombe, it's like I don't know.
Not familiar.
It's a training. It's like a surf training thing, and they're kind of always talking about like techniques and surfing and stuff. It's all based on Palm Beach, on the Gold Coast, right where the reef is. So I'm just trying to draw parallels that there's a huge surf industry there too.
Yeah.
And it's awesome there. There's peaks everywhere.
So you're all for it.
Yes.
For what's about to happen.
Yeah. And we are really like, we have a healthy contract with lots of tasks that are going to make sure this is really refined and adequately assessed before putting it in the ground.
I look at it too. I mean, I surf too, and to qualify, I'm a knee boarder. From the 70s,
Cool.
so I wear 2 booties and 2 swim fins, and a grab rail kneeboarding, and I don't care what anybody thinks. If you think about, all right, what is Oceanside? Oceanside is a sandy beach, so it's a beach break. Where do the best waves break? They break at the harbor on both jetties, and they also break at the pier. And all of those
structures,
all of those things are sand retention devices. The pier slows down sand flow, and the sand sticks around, so you tend to get better sandbars and you get better waves. So I always look at it as a win. If you can get more sand on the beach, you have more possibility of dynamic movement and getting some sandbars that you might actually be able to surf.
Yeah, so then we have the surfing aspect, but then we also have the beach going aspect where you want to go with your family, I want to go with my family, and kind of hang out, which we're missing. We're all crammed in an Oceanside. And thank goodness you're here to help.
Yeah.
And I would look at that really in more of a macroeconomic sense, because if we're going to drop 50 mil, which means the reality is probably going to be like 75 to 80 mil, because I've noticed things are more expensive every day. You blink and things are more expensive. Is if you can do that, but it's an investment that becomes an economic driver that results in higher occupancy taxes and all the things that come along with people being in Oceanside, and not just at the pier, but down by Wisconsin and all that. Like, spread it out and drive commercial traffic on those areas, restaurants and all the places down there. You know, it could pay for itself. You get those multipliers, and the payback periods are crazy short when you really kind of strike a gold vein. When you thinking, you got to think big, and so be like, oh my gosh, $50 million, that's crazy. Well, if you get paid back in 2 years, and then you're getting $25 million a year in perpetuity, and it just grows, like, I like those numbers. I will give you $50 million today if you give me $25 million a year in perpetuity. I like that return on investment.
Well, it's funny you should say that. We are in the process of doing a beach valuation study and a fiscal analysis too, like for the city, like what did the beaches actually provide for city function?
Right.
And so we're in the process of doing that. It's part of this project. And we'll have that update probably in a few months, maybe even 1 month we'll be done with that. So it'll have that kind of that cost benefit analysis of, you know, what is this going to provide? And then what is it going to cost? And clearly, it's, you know,
because the one thing,
it's worth it.
The one thing I think about things sometimes, and the opportunity we have in Oceanside, and this is nothing, this is my opinion, is Oceanside considers itself a place for people to live. And I think we have an opportunity to consider it an opportunity to generate wealth for the community in terms of driving business and driving taxes and just the things that, like, it's an asset that people use, and the city gets paid. And then with that, we make better schools. We make better, you know, we create a community that the citizens can I get a return on investment? Oceanside seems historically to be focused on like building a bunch of houses, but property taxes on houses, doing the math, doesn't generate net income because it just you use it by more services. So that doesn't really count. You got to drive a tax base. And so I think we have a huge opportunity because we're the only city, coastal city, with a harbor, with a pier, and 4 miles of beach, and an airport, as you can hear, flying over. And some geographic constraints, you know, to the east, you got mountains and you got Camp Pendleton. From Newport, there's nothing, or Dana Point. Yeah. There's Newport, Dana Point here. And then from here, you don't have anything until you get to San Diego or Mission Bay. And if you look at that economically, how we can compare to those regions, we're probably not at the top. So we have an opportunity to kind of maximize an underutilized asset. So if we could look at it that way, and this getting beaches is the first start to that. Like, hey, our beaches are massive. Great. We can bring in tons of people to have a great time.
And if you think about it, the beach is an economic driver, whether you want it to be or not.
Right.
Whether you want the community to grow or whether you want it to, you know, go back to what it was, which it can't do. The beach is always going to be a economic driver that is important to people. And it's I mean, it's what I told City Council before Christmas. The beach is important to Oceanside. It always has been, and it always will be. It's in our city name, and we see it slowly but surely going away.
Yeah.
Everyone gets more compressed. Everybody gets more uppity. Oceanside's a lot better place if we have 4 miles of beach.
Right.
You've got people that are going to get off the Sprinter train and come to the beach on a hot day. You have tourists that are going to come, whether you want them to or not. And you have people that go to the beach like us, and we just want to surf.
Right.
Or you want to hang out. Think about when you got some of the best surf in Oceanside. Sandag did a regional beach project in, like, I believe 2001.
And 12.
And we had an El Nino winter in 98. Those sandbars on Northside from like 2000 to 2007 were as good as they get.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the benefit of the sand. At the end of the day, we're all human. Everybody's scared of changing something. Ooh, that might ruin it. I think this is such a positive thing for the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Jayme, since we have you here, what is the actual construction going to be? Is it just going to be rocks dropped on the ocean, or are we going to have like a concrete something made? What's the construction?
So the construction of the reef.
The reef.
Yeah. So the reef will be built using a barge,
Okay.
an excavator, if you will,
Mhm.
that will place rock from a quarry, from the Catalina quarry.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be getting different sizes of rock. The way that the Gold Coast Reef is constructed is it's basically cobble on the bottom to
Mhm.
keep the sand from coming up through the reef, through the rock. And so it's like it's layers of different rock sizes. So it starts with cobble and then it gets larger and larger. And then at the top is like 8-ton rock. So a couple
okay.
real big ones strategically placed with an excavator off of a barge.
I feel some lobster diving in my future.
It's going to be habitat building
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
yeah, everything.
Yeah.
And this will be above water, underwater?
The placement of the rock will
Yeah.
happen in the water,
No.
right
Will
there.
it
It
be
won't-
above the surface of the waves or the ocean?
Will it be submerged,
Submerged,
or
yeah.
up above? No, it'll be submerged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Like, will it never ever be
Lowest
seen?
enough tide, negative tide or
we,
something.
We still have to figure out all those
Mm.
design
Yeah.
elements, but current design has it submerged with about 5 feet of water above it, 6 feet maybe.
I saw renderings, and a lot of it has like a lot of things on the shoreline. Are those just conceptual, or is that, because I imagine the primary purpose is the reef and the headland.
Mhm.
That's the principal structure, and then the bike paths and the grass and the playgrounds and all that jazz. Like
Right.
that's nice, but I don't know if that's
Yeah.
really results in sand. I don't think playgrounds bring sand.
Because like when we first did this contract, we didn't know what kind of retention devices we were going to be
Yeah.
getting out of the competition. So we kind of didn't have a contract that enveloped everything. So the latest kind of augment is about, we have a landscape architect that's going to be doing some of those design elements that are on the headlands itself. The Aussies, they wanted to do like a barbecue. Like they have these great gas barbecues in Australia where there's like a hot water spigot right there and the gas barbecue. It's awesome. It's open and public and free. But I said, I don't know. I don't know. We could try it out, but
I have a lot of experience with architects and landscape architects, and they all want to design what they want to design, and then you have to ask them to design what we can actually build and pay for.
Well, yes, I understand.
so
like the pier.
I will.
Had several iterations.
I'll
of that.
just give you guys this one for free. If you need to cut costs, the beach is a giant park. No need for playgrounds. No need for bike paths. You can maybe put a bike path like HB has.
Well, there's already a road.
Well, but Huntington Beach has a nice bike path that goes. That's like nice, but
Yeah.
Other than that, I think we're good.
It'll all be discussed like with public. We're going to have a lot of public meetings about this. Like what would the community like to see on these headlands? Do you want very minimal? I mean, the lifeguards have already weighed in, and the lifeguards would like a tower, and that's great.
Sure, we should definitely have tower.
Yes.
Fire. As a former lifeguard, I'm biased in that. Yes.
Right. So a large majority of the area is going to be with a tower, probably.
And I know this is bad. Throw some fire pits on there. Those are good. Fire
We
pits
gotta have
aren't
sand.
bad.
You gotta have a beach.
That's what I'm saying.
We used to have fire pits.
No, I know, but fire pits are okay. We just got to, people neglect it. We got to manage them right. I like fire pits.
What have you heard from the community? Have you heard from the community yourself personally?
About what the headland should.
Yeah, not what they should look like or anything like that. But are people stoked on this idea?
I think people are scratching their heads right now. Like, what's going to be up there? Like, what are these things? Why are they the way they are now? Why do they look that way? They are rounded, and that's by design again, so that the sand can move around easier. If it's just a groin and it's straight, it's you have to infill all the way out to the end of the groin for the sand to move around the groin, go back and forth. And so these are rounded so that there isn't that heavy retention, but that's kind of all we have at this point. We haven't done a lot of other discussions about what's going to be on the headland itself.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, we're stoked.
So I'm not a young man. I know I appear youthful and vibrant, but will I be able to enjoy this before I die, or is this going to be 20 years from now when I'm like in my dying breath, my grandchildren bring me a picture of the first rock being dropped off the beach?
Well, I
figure I got a good 20 left in me.
The schedule is pretty tight right now. Like, we're expecting to get done with permitting, environmental compliance and permitting by the end of 2026. So 2026, 2027 is when we'll have our permits in hand. Will we have the funds to implement the project by then? That's kind of the question right now that we're working to solve.
Does that involve you, or is that the government?
I mean, it involves me.
Okay.
She's going to write a check.
Well, I mean,
she's going to write $20 million.
There's more money coming into Oceanside, probably more than ever, with the hotels and all these things.
Right. So so city manager's office is kind of working on what's the next step to fund this. And there's a lot of different ideas, and it probably will be funds from different sources. It'll be funds from, potentially from grants. There's like some FEMA grants that we can get into. Like, that'll help us.
Just do a bond.
We can do bonds.
Do bond issue. They do bond issuance for everything else. They seems to be like, you don't even understand what the purpose of it is, but they all get approved.
Right.
Well, I think too, I think you're going to see some more firepower get behind this, because Sandag, as their shoreline working group, they're going to present on the agenda next March for Rebeach to be the regional pilot project. And that doesn't mean that it's no longer a city project. At the end of the day, it's clearly an Oceanside city project. But with Sandag behind it, you have some more resources to be able to go out and find money.
Yeah, that's great.
And to attract funding. And that starts to break down, some of the misconceptions and everything about this project as far as the county goes. And our sister coastal communities, where everybody can get behind this. It's not necessarily right for their community, but it's definitely needed and right for Oceanside, because you have to have some sort of retention mechanism.
Yeah. So,
well, real quick, you brought up permitting. Is it like who gives those permits out? Is it the Coastal Commission, or who is it?
So we'll be doing an EIR, which is an environmental impact report and assessment there. And then along with that, we follow that up with permits to do the construction, which come from the Army Corps of Engineers, their regulatory division, not the one that we've been struggling with, different division, regulatory division. Then the Regional Water Quality Control Board will weigh in with a water quality certification. The Coastal Commission will weigh in with a coastal development permit.
So that makes me nervous.
State Lands Commission. Well, let me.
Coastal Commission makes me nervous.
I will help you with this.
Good. Help me be not nervous.
I'm going to allow you to sleep tonight. So, Coastal Commission, they're actually, we've applied for a grant. We're applying for a grant from the Coastal Commission to fund portions of the baseline monitoring for Rebeach. They've actually asked us to apply for funds to help us get this done. So they are strongly indicating that they would like to see this happen.
So wait a minute. There's a project that the Coastal Commission wants to happen.
They want it done right, but they want it done their way, but they're indicating that they would like us to keep moving. And they've said, verbatim, that Oceanside is doing everything right in terms of coastal assessments and management at this point.
And I'll attest to that, because
Bill's head exploded.
My heart. Hold on. I got to take some heart medication.
I'll back Jayme up on that one, because my first advocacy effort for Save Oceanside Sand was to speak before the Coastal Commission at Imperial Beach when everybody was fired up about the pollution.
Nobody wanted to hear what you had to talk about.
We talked about retention, and we talked about, Bob spoke and talked about, hey, we don't, the word on the street is you guys are never going to approve anything. Coastal Commission actually talked amongst themselves after public comment was over and said, this is exactly the process that we want coastal communities to embrace.
In their like sea level rise guidance documents from 2018, they indicate that an artificial reef should be tested as a means of helping adapt to sea level rise, which means attenuate the waves and retain sand, because sand is not only is it an asset, but it's infrastructure.
It's a barrier,
it's our
too.
buffer between our built environment and the ocean. And so, they really are encouraged by the positive and extensive project planning that we've been working on. And they have been encouraging to keep going with this. And it's because no one's done anything like this. And no one has any of these big plans like we do. Like, we're really far ahead. And so they're encouraging us to test this out. It's something that's moving forward and has momentum and has support, and all these things are really good in their eyes.
And has any other cities come to you and thinking, because there's a lot of this problem's up and down Southern California,
right?
Have they come and try to either work with you or ask questions, like they kind of want to follow? We're kind of the leaders, or you're the leader.
We met with City of San Clemente a couple years back, and they have been kind of crafting a similar kind of sand retention options for their coastline. There's parts of San Clemente that are pretty eroded, so we met with them, and we sometimes talk with. Just various other cities up and down the coast.
And we've started outreach with Carlsbad to the south, and we've got a pretty good relationship with some of their people. I think that there's people in these other coastal communities that realize something more needs to be done. They have portions of their beach that start to disappear too. It's a concern for everybody. And I think to your point earlier, about the economy, all of that, this is an opportunity for Oceanside to really shine. Oceanside really has an opportunity to be a leader and to show people what can be done that actually can work and provide a lot of compromise to the community for various things that people are concerned about, and yet still work. This is not going to stop sand flow. It just slows it down enough to stick around.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, I because on this show, there's a process you go through, and my approach was, those jetties in Newport sure seem to work really good. We should just, and I was like,
every week,
I was like, hey,
week.
Mike, what if we just dropped off some rocks tomorrow? And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You guys can pick them up. They'd probably never move. But the end of the day, there's a process in the community. We're where we're at, which is a great place. So I'm really happy of where we're at. But I do agree that it could be the model. And at the end of the day, you're right. All coastal communities, and as Jayme, you said, even beyond the United States, experience this. And if we can learn to do this in a way that's effective and efficient, and there's a degree of it's proven concepts, it's not a $50 million project. It's a $20 million project because and it happens in 2 years versus 6 years because there's a degree of confidence in it. We know how to make it work. We know how to modify it. We can fine tune it. And even if we drop some rocks and then, you know what? We need to put some over here to kind of tweak this little piece because the lab models are one thing, but reality is the ocean's a big place. Last time I checked.
Right.
I think it could just really serve as a model and be economic drivers, for coastal communities to really maximize the resource that you have, because it gets hotter than hell about 30 minutes from here.
Yeah.
And if we have a nice
it's hot here.
Yeah.
If we have a
In July
giant
and
beach,
August.
if we have giant beaches, everybody from Temecula and Escondido, come on down. And there's probably people cursing me right now, like, no, we don't want people. But I always say that Oceanside's such a secret spot. We have our own sign on the freeway that tells you how to get there.
Yeah.
So
well, they're already coming as part of this economic evaluation. We're seeing where people are coming from to come to our beaches. So I've seen some of these like big hotspots where I think everyone has. You can also just talk with people on the beach and say, where are you from?
Right.
But, rather than having them just circle harbor parking lot looking for a parking spot,
Angrily,
they
by
can
the
go
way.
somewhere. Exactly. They can go somewhere else in Oceanside. And we can expand our resources.
I like it. I like it.
There's different ways to look at it too. People get compressed, they get uppity. If people can spread out, they're a little happier. I think one of the things that Jayme always comes back to is we've had managed beaches ever since Camp Pendleton Boat Basin went in.
Yeah.
At that point, you no longer have a natural beach.
Mm-hmm.
You have a managed beach that over the years we have sometimes managed it better than other periods of time. Think about our hometown Olympian. Think of Katie Semmers. She had room to experiment. Waves are pretty precious right now with people compressed. People don't really want to throw them away, do they?
Right.
No.
Yeah, the history of Oceanside beaches is pretty fascinating. It's always been a disposal area for all of the construction that happened, the construction in the San Luis Rey, the construction of both of the harbors. And so often our beaches are, regarded historically as being really wide. Well, they were artificially wide because
Just dump
we
sand.
were putting so many millions of cubic yards of sand. And now without those construction projects happening, well, we have to manage it to accommodate what we want there now. And it is possible. That's the driver here, at least from my perspective, is that this is a project. This is a project management thing. This is a maintenance of infrastructure. And, we don't build roads and then just let them go. We maintain them. And that's what we need to do with our beaches because it's the same exact principle. They are now unable to sustain themselves without our help. And so that's why we have to invest in maintaining them.
Surfrider Foundation have any comments?
They're so far supportive of our efforts to date. They're curious about, how much sand we're going to retain. Are we going to affect other areas? And they're cautious, but they are thus far part of the project, and they're supportive of how we've been rolling out the project to date.
I've personally been disappointed by them a few times over the years, for what they've advocated against. So that's why I ask is, I don't know.
You brought up Surfrider Foundation. I think, look on the positive side of, we believe in like coalition building and outreach. And if you bring people to the table and they actually will discuss something with you, you have a chance to reach common ground. We called up Mitch Silverstein and asked him to come speak on our behalf to get the city to start budgeting for a coastal zone administration department. And he showed up and rocked it. There's ways to bridge that gap. And
aside from Rebeach, which is, like I said, the pilot project between Tyson and Wisconsin, and then we expect to have far-reaching beneficial impacts from that, from all the sand that we're going to place. But aside from that, there's other things that we're working on to kind of build resiliency back into Oceanside and have that buffer, that sandy buffer. So we're working with Sandag on their next Regional Beach Sand Project 3. That's in the feasibility study phase. And so it's wrapping up with that. And then the next will be the design phase. So it's still a few years out before they're going to be doing their Regional Beach Sand Project. We've asked for 1 million cubic yards out of that effort. So that could come before or after Rebeach, but it's going to come supplemental to Rebeach. Aside from that, we're working on removing the old road that used to cross over to South Jetty. There's kind of that, if you remember that road.
Before they built the bridge.
Before they built the
all
bridge.
that sand.
There's still a lot of structure left in that river mouth. And therefore, the sand doesn't flow out. And it oftentimes, when we place the sand from the dredging efforts, we're placing it in April, May. And I say we, but I mean the Army Corps places it April, May. South swell start up and take that sand right back into either the harbor mouth or it goes into that San Luis Rey River and then it gets stuck behind that old road.
Yeah, there's a bunch of sand right there.
Right. So we're working on getting project designed there. We're very early on in this.
How much sand is there?
Something I have to get a better estimate on. But
so we might need to every once in a while honk our horn, just make sure no birds decide to make that their new house, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, we were gonna move it, but well, okay, hey bird, here's a couple of seeds. Go live over there.
In general, it's preferred by the agencies that manage different species, that help manage endangered species. We remove structural things that are impeding flow, natural flow.
Okay.
So net biologically, it's better to have that removed than it would be just if some bird kind of decides least turns kind of post up there for a period of time.
There's actually a lot of competing endangered species in that area
Really?
and in the Ray. Yeah. And so if we remove the roadbed, we could actually see steelhead come back to San
I'd love
Luis
that.
Ray. I mean, they were there. They were
That would
absolutely
be phenomenal if
So Santa
steelhead.
Margarita,
Yeah.
I heard they have.
They have steelhead.
Yeah. I remember reading an article of some guy. He's just some like fisherman kid, but he just kind of did it as a hobby. And one day caught a steelhead inside of trestles, and he was like, it was crazy. It was a little baby one, but still, he was like, "There's one." You know, that's awesome. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, and this is just one of many different things that we're working on aside from Rebeach.
Can you help me get on Coastal Commission? I think I would be. I think I would be. I could help.
I don't know how to get that happening.
We're not sure how anybody gets on Coastal Commission.
I can do a lot, but I'm not sure.
We're a 501c3. I'm not sure we're allowed to advocate for that, Billy.
I'm an international podcaster. Don't they need that?
You can advocate. You can speak up. Actually, as the public.
Actually, my day job that I keep discreet, I actually kind of know a lot about some of the things they work on, but I have to be careful.
I think too. I'd like to point out that over the years we have built we don't always see eye to eye with the city and what's being done, but we always agree to get together and talk about it. There's things that we advocate for that the city's not going to do. That's one of the things we hear sometimes. Well, you guys are just the city. No, we're not. We'd like to see shorter term sand nourishment projects done, and that becomes a capacity issue for the city. So there's ways to advocate for, you can advocate for greater capacity, gives Jayme a chance to have, do more things because she's got help. Those are the things we get in there and talk about, not only with Jayme, but with Jonathan Borrego, our city manager. That's one of the things we kind of learned at the last city council meeting. It's a good idea for us to show up once a month and just, noodle out what it is that is important to remind the city about. And those are positive ways you can work together. In trying to educate the public, we sometimes run into people that are, they're oppositional.
Yeah.
And you brought up jetties before. It's hilarious. Don't change anything. You'll ruin the waves. You'll do this. You do that. And at the end and then they get frustrated and walk away. And they go, "Why don't you just build jetties?" Yeah. You're kind of really?
Yeah. We have seen, sometimes it just seems like, to your point, there's a process. Everybody gets to talk. And on the backside of it, you get an outcome that, it's probably better than any one of them were initially because of the fact that little pieces pulled from everything. And that's just kind of, you're listening to each other. You're hearing ideas and, maybe you're coming around on some things or you're realizing maybe some things you thought after you flesh them out, that's not a great idea. So I think it's good. I like it all. Look at that. Even the people like it. Even the people. You like it? You know what? Did you notice one thing though, Mike? Jayme never quite answered the question if you and I will be around to enjoy this. She's like, I don't know. You guys are kind of pushing the boundaries of we're not really sure, but
I think so.
You think so?
I think so.
Right.
There's a lot of efforts being made to figure out.
I mean, look at that beard
this.
on him. It's pretty gray.
Yeah.
Mine's pretty gray too, though. So,
but keep advocating because that's what helps.
That's
awesome. I
awesome.
think it's great. I mean, if we can do this, and we as a city, and we become kind of a shining star for what can be done, that's like generational benefits. Like some of the work that's being done right now. This could really change generations of how people live and stuff, and that's huge. It's a big deal.
One of the Save Oceanside Sand members, he said to me, well, if you bring back beaches for 20 years, that's like 20 years. That's like several generations that get to enjoy beaches that are local to Oceanside. Like that's just, even if Mother Nature has other things in mind for beaches, we can provide beaches for 20 years with this project.
When you think about these type of projects, beach projects, sand projects, restoration, they're very, very long term. But I think that when you look at what Oceanside has going, 2027 is not that far away.
No.
It's going to be here pretty quick. I believe you definitely have a chance to see the initial pilot project and quite possibly more.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, so thank you guys. We don't want to talk till 2027, so we probably got to wrap this up.
We'll spend $20 million just talking
We
about the
probably
project.
could talk.
That's why I quit working for Mike.
All right.
All right. You want to wrap this up, Bill?
We're
Thank
wrapped.
you guys so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
Charles, Jayme.
I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk. Thank
It's
you.
therapeutic.
Look up Save Oceanside Sand and support them, with your time, financially. Attend the meetings,
City Council.
attend the city council meetings, like what Charlie said about participating, be a part of the process because it just helps get a better outcome for all of us. So,
All right, everybody.
100%.
run the music.
All right, we're out.
Wow. I nailed that. That was like perfect timing.